Hello, Ida. Thank you for joining me today in another one of these sessions that we're having at TI Slovenia, trying to discuss different approaches to ensuring whistleblowers' protection in the next few years in Europe. The purpose of today's talk is, in general, to discuss the role of civil society in whistleblowers' protection and the process of transposition of the new EU Directive. But before we get to that, I would like to give you a few minutes just to present yourself and the organization that you come from for all of those who might not know it.
Sure. So my name is Ida Nowers and I'm Law and Policy Coordinator at the Whistleblowing International Network, known as WIN. And WIN is an international network, a non-profit organisation. We're registered as a charity in Scotland, and we have members and associates, 47 and counting, who are all non-profit organisations. Our members are those who provide direct legal advice and practical support to whistleblowers, and our associates are those who also are non-profits but are, even if not providing direct advice, supporting whistleblowers through long-standing activities which support whistleblowing protection. So that could be investigations or research. We developed out of a small group of NGOs who had direct and very hard-won experience of working directly with whistleblowers for over 40 years, who were being increasingly contacted by other issue-focused civil society organisations who were looking for that expertise specifically in whistleblowing protection. And they began to share that knowledge cross borders. And so a discussion had to be had around how best to consistently and coherently share that expertise. And WIN was born out of that discussion. We have members and associates all over the world now who are continually sharing international best practice consensus on whistleblowing law and practice. We held our first conference in Scotland, in Glasgow, where we brought together over 80 delegates who were all sharing their expertise of running independent advice centres for whistleblowers, or working to campaign or lobby for legal reforms. So WIN is an international hub of expertise, and we work to build the capacity of our participating organisations to do the really important work that they do to defend and support whistleblowers. Our website very much reflects the work that we do. We have news and events on whistleblowing worldwide. We have a resources library where we have strategic documents, whether that's laws or cases, guides and standards that are relevant to whistleblowing law and practice. And we have a spotlight function which looks at the most important whistleblowing issues of the day. We've also launched our podcast, where our Executive Director Anna Myers and an Assistant Professor of EU Law, Vigilenza Abazi, will interview whistleblowing experts to explore the topics that's facing them on the ground as they work with whistleblowers.
Then I would like to continue with what might seem like a basic question, but I think it's a very important one. And I would just like to take your opinion, like based on your experience and expertise, how do you see the role of whistleblowers in general and the benefits of having whistleblowers in a democratic society, and also the necessity for efficient protection of whistleblowers?
So whistleblowers are people who go to work every day and come across wrongdoing risk or malpractice in their workplace, and are in a position to provide the information that's needed to someone that can do something about that risk of harm, whether that's in a residential nursing home or a nuclear power plant. There's different levels of risk, different levels of harm, but it's really important that we encourage and support those people that have witnessed something which would otherwise not come to light, so that either regulators or accountable bodies can do something about that risk of harm. but also to support the public's right to know information. So the human rights dimension of whistleblowing is not just about the freedom of expression in the individual reporting what they've seen, but also in the audience, in the public's right to know information which affects them. The reason that we talk so much about legal protection of whistleblowers is that that legal protection is needed when there are real barriers to a whistleblower speaking up and speaking truth to power. And the reason that we protect whistleblowers in law is to ensure that free flow of information for public and democratic accountability purposes.
Your organization, as well as Transparency International with different chapters around the world, we have all been trying to improve the draft of the directive when it was still in the negotiating phase, and now for as best as possible transposition in each and every member state in the EU. And one of those interesting tools, if I may call it a tool, that we develop is also EU Whistleblowing Meter. And I just wanted to ask you for you to say a few words about it and basically describe the idea behind it.
So the EU Whistleblowing Meter is hosted by WIN in collaboration with Transparency International and Eurocadre, and it's a website to visually display the progress of transposition of the directive in all 27 member states. It's also for the public and policymakers to engage with both progress that's been made and to highlight where member states have fallen behind in the timeline to transpose. They're required to implement the provisions before the 17th of December 2021, and to really push for, as you said, the stronger protections of whistleblowers. Because of EU competency, the directive could really only require protection of whistleblowers reporting breaches of union law. But of course, there has always been the intention to have a comprehensive EU-wide framework for the protection of whistleblowers, and for that consistency, because of course it's quite difficult even for you or I to understand what is a breach of union law, what is actually a matter of national law, to extend the protection horizontally, as we say, to include breaches of local national law and regulation. So the EU Whistleblowing Meter will have a page for each country where updates are submitted by our team of voluntary country editors, and anyone can log on and see what progress has been made or what lack of progress there is in their country, and to understand the importance of whistleblowing protections and engage with that process if they want to. Eventually, the EU Whistleblowing Meter will be able to highlight the key areas of concern for transposition of the directive. Those are the key advocacy areas for those working in the whistleblowing protection community to push policymakers to close loopholes in national provisions and address some of these sticky issues. And to make sure that either unwittingly or deliberately, member states don't water down the provisions of the directive.
Different countries made different progress in the meantime. If you would just like to comment, how do you see the progress made so far in the whole European Union, and whether there are any issues of concern that you see at the moment?
So overall, I think you could say there has been some delay in transposition. We're approaching the halfway mark now before the deadline of December 2021. Some countries have engaged in some really comprehensive public consultation. For example, in Sweden, there's a report into an inquiry as to how the new requirements will fit into pre-existing legal framework. There has been quite a wide-ranging public consultation with key stakeholders. But other countries were not aware that any progress has been made. Now, that might be that they just simply haven't told us or been public enough about what they've been doing behind the scenes. But of course, that's an issue in and of itself, because whistleblowing protection laws, to be effective, need to be known by those that might need to use them one day. So again, we hope that the Whistleblowing Meter will encourage member states to engage with the platform itself and be encouraged to provide information, even if that's just a public statement of their intention to transpose the directive, to really raise awareness of the importance of whistleblowing protection. So whereas some countries have taken action and there are some draft laws in certain member states, in other countries there's a lack of progress. And we hope again that by having that visual of a list of member states, who's taken action and who hasn't, it will continue to build a momentum, because nobody wants to fall behind with such an important topic. Some of the key areas that we see coming up, for example, in Germany, we see a debate around horizontal transposition. That's whether or not provisions will extend to breaches of national law or will remain a sort of verbatim transposition of the directive text, which can, as I said before, only apply to breaches of union law. There are some other key areas of concern around good faith. So that's requiring a whistleblower to be acting in good faith as to whether or not they're reporting. We see that some member states have referred to good faith when talking about their intention to transpose the directive. And actually the directive is quite clear that the motivation of a whistleblower should not be relevant as to whether or not they would receive protection under the law. We can see there are some other tricky areas around reasonable belief in the truth of information. That's a legal standard, and so we can share argumentation and advocacy tips, if you like, around making sure that member states include a legal definition which is favourable to whistleblowers in the provisions that they pass. Also an issue around interim relief. So that's if a whistleblower might need protection early on when they can see that there's going to be a fallout with their employer perhaps, and they're at risk of whether it's demotion or dismissal or any form of employment reprisal, they can access early protection to prevent them from losing their job. Because often with retaliation claims in a court, that often comes a long time after they've suffered the victimization, and therefore it can be too late for them. So those interim relief measures, which are highlighted as important in the directive's text, need to be really effective. So again, using the expertise of whistleblowing experts in the WIN network who understand how interim measures work in practice is going to be really important. So we can share that expertise on the EU Whistleblowing Meter by flagging the tools and guides that civil society have produced to really help with implementation of the directive. And there's a growing number of those, which if you log on to the website and look on the blog, you can see the monthly updates which we produce, which include not just what developments there have been in each member state, but also academic studies and including Transparency International's methodology on implementing whistleblowing laws. And there's a few other tools like that available. I just think that the EU Whistleblowing Meter and the work of WIN really highlights the importance of civil society in whistleblowing protection, because whistleblowing protection laws are essentially citizen engagement law. Those in power or employers and governments can see the value of whistleblowing protection, but because the law itself is providing a framework to allow those to speak truth to power, it's only going to be through public participation and citizen engagement that those protections are going to be effective, because policy and lawmakers need continually reminding of the importance for whistleblower protection, whether that's in anti-corruption or through using public scandals and tragedies, incidents where there has been an investigation or an inquiry, and actually it's been found that somebody knew about the risk, was either too scared to speak up, or they were ignored or victimized. So, and in some cases, sadly, there's been that preventable loss of life or harm. And really to drill down why whistleblowing protection is so important, to ensure that people who witness wrongdoing can report it to somebody that can do something about it.